My dad meant the world to me, and judging by all the wonderful things you've said to us, my dad meant the world to a lot of you all too. My friend Kim told me, when we lose people like your dad, I feel like the whole world should stop for a while and take notice. I've heard similar sentiments over and over again. It seems people put my dad in a special category that not everyone makes it into, and felt his death should be marked. The world should pay attention and grieve that he no longer exists in it. This makes me happy to know that other people recognize what I've always known about my dad. My dad was continually putting others before himself. One of the reasons I think my dad was so eager to help others was because he simply loved people so much. He genuinely cared about what was going on in the lives of others and found authentic ways to connect with everyone he met. He loved being around people, loved his friends, and loved turning strangers into friends. Nothing made him happier than having our home filled with family. I consider myself lucky to know without a doubt that my father was devoted to us. He showed us that in a million different ways. Words can't express how much I loved him and how very much I miss him. I'm comforted in knowing that he and my mother are together again, and that we will meet when it's time for me to go home. I'm also comforted by many wonderful memories of my dad. Every morning I watched him take a cup of coffee to my mom so she could enjoy it while she was still in bed. And when he was away, my sister and I had to do the same thing. He cared for my mother until her death 3 years ago. He was my champion and my hero. He was bigger than life to me. And sometimes that was good, sometimes that was good. Like when we were little and we would get in trouble, he just had the biggest hands and arms, and we would always run and hide under the bed and go all the way to the back wall, and these hands would just reach in, pull us out, and bring us up nose to nose so we could have a discussion. And before anything else would happen, I would vaguely hear, "Don't you hurt my babies." And he'd roll his eyes and put us down. Or he was big enough, he could just lift the bed. We'd be hiding, and then also we'd be light. But, as a child, I was also very accident prone, and one of my memories, or many of my memories, are of him scooping me up, blood gushing everywhere, and taking me to the hospital, and staying with me while I got stitches, and then bringing me safely home, where Mother would be waiting. And he always had a helping hand. He always wanted to help us be involved in everything. I remember that, my dad is a real sports fanatic. Most of you already know that. And so, trying to be frugal in my first apartment, I barely could just afford the bed. And he and Mother came for a visit, and they went home, and then the next visit when they came, because I was living in Washington, D.C., down near the zoo, there was a knock at the door. And when I went to open the door, all I saw was a big box. And it was my TV, my new TV. And then Mother, Dad came in first, and Mother came in behind him, and she said, "Your father can't be without sports." And we hooked that TV up right away. And I was rarely without a TV. Another time when my mom and him visited, I had to take a job in Winchester, about 2 hours west of Washington, and I went out there and set up an apartment, and they said they were going to come out to visit. I said, "That'd be great, I'm at work," but I said, "Just check into the hotel," because I had stayed at this hotel while I was establishing myself there, and I'll be over at lunch, So they arrived about 11, and at noon, I jumped in the car and raced over to the hotel. I thought, well, maybe they're not here yet, I said, well, let me check, and at this Hampton Inn, when you walk in, the doors automatically open. And I started for my room. I got in the room there, and so I was like, oh, I'm just, and they said, oh, your dad and mom are here. They're wonderful. They're in room. Such and such. They told me, I said, right down the hallway. And I must have passed 5 different people, all the different workers. And they said, hey, I met your dad and mom. And I was like, what? But this was the way, whenever we were out together, wherever he went, he would make friends just right away. And everybody, for the whole weekend, everybody in town knew my parents were there. And, hey, how you doing? And I was just like completely surprised. I kind of exist in a little anonymity, but not with my dad. He traveled the world, and he had my mom and sister and I go out and travel in the world, and he also brought the world to us. And for that, I'm very thankful, because I continue to do that as much as possible, and encourage you to do that for yourselves and family. In closing, my father taught me and my sister to work hard, how you should show your love for family and friends, and above all else, how to give without seeking anything in return. Help others, value people, and give your best time to your family and friends. If there is anything you don't know about my dad that you can take away today, is that he was a healthy 85 years young, swimming every other day. He cherished his independence, and his lifetime of dedication and self-sacrifice served as a monument to the exemplary man he was. His humility, integrity, and hard work continue to inspire those who knew him. He grew into a successful and revered accountant, auditor, and investigator. With a family who treasured his advice and time, he was a man who would give you anything you needed and ask for nothing in return.
Linda and Cheryl wanted me to open this up a little bit and give people a chance to share memories. So if there's anybody who would like to give me a little wave, I'll bring you the microphone. It'll be kind of like the Phil Donahue show or something. Then we'll just be kind of informal. If you would just identify yourself and let us know how you knew Jerry.
My name is Rufus Daniels. I'm a ruling elder at Sergeant Memorial Presbyterian Church, where we shared life with Jerry and the whole family. So what I have to say is somewhat an echo and a tribute to what they just said. It's about the Creator, the creation, and our living in it. These are the things I prize and hold of dearest world. Light of the sapphire skies, peace of the silent hills, shelter of forests, comfort of the grass, music of birds, murmur of little rills, shadows of clouds that swiftly pass. And after showers, the smell of flowers and the smell of the good brown earth, but best of all, along the way, friendship and mirth. So let us keep these treasures of the humble heart in true possession, owning them by love. And when at last we cannot live among them freely, but must pass from these green fields and waters clear, let us not creep into some darkened room and hide from all the things that make the world so bright and clear, but throw the windows wide to welcome in the light. Then, while I clasp some well-beloved hand, let me once more have sight of the far sky and of the smiling land, then gently fall on sleep and yield my body back to nature's care, my spirit back to thee, God of the open air. God of the open air. Peace.
Nicely done. You get the memory star. Anybody else?
Good afternoon, all. We are the Wilsons. We have been friends of, well, my husband had been a friend of Jerome as young people. When we were engaged and married, he brought me to visit Jerome and Jerome's mother. That's just how close they were. Then, when he was called into the military, he went in the military, excuse me. And as I told one of his daughters a few days ago, I was a young, aspiring young lady. And he brought me to the District of Columbia and assigned me to checked me into Walter Reed. And he took off to the military. Of course, he left me in the care of Millicent and Jerome. And the rest is history.
Wonderful, thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Edward Reddick, and my wife is Melanie and Jerry's niece. I'm a niece-in-law. I'm an uncle. Cousin or something. Anyway, when Nellie and them decided to move to Toma, they talked to us and said, you know, here you're trying to buy a house. I said, yes, we have a house for you. Their house in Cheryl. We still own it. And New Year's was unusual. Now you cannot have 25 football games on New Year's because it's spread all over. But Millie and Jerry invited everybody to their house, and it was a New Year's Day forever.
Sounds fun.
Hi, Tony Prep, and I follow up on the New Year's. I remember those from the time I was like 3 until I went to college, and they were a great time. And I always remember the basements, the basement in Chevrolet, and the basement in Potomac, and I was going to build a basement, and I did. And Jerry was always there. He was there when I graduated high school, graduated college, was there right after my daughter was born. It was my mom's 70th birthday party. They came to all our houses, and he was there. My mom passed away a year ago, comforting us, and he was there with my dad when we went to the 50th anniversary party just 6 months ago. It was a wonderful time. 3 of us did a road trip. It was great. He's a wonderful man and a great family. I just have fantastic memories. I'm going to miss him dearly.
Hi, my name is Chris Mitchum. I am Jerry's nephew. Millie was my aunt, Mary, she's my dad's sister. And since we have to bring up Uncle Jerry's love of sports, we have to talk about his Redskins tickets and his love of football. And he did bring Aunt Millie into the fold of Redskin fandom, but to say she was a fair weather fan would be entirely accurate. Because as I learned shortly after my dad passed away, I was working in the car business and tooling around, and I'd get a call in late October, early November, because the weather had gone south. And Aunt Millie just wasn't about to go out in that cold rain. And Uncle Jerry looked around and said, well, who's dumb enough to come with me to this game? That's right. He called me, we'd like to go to a Redskins game, the stadium that's been sold out for 40 years. I'm there. He said, can you drive? I'm there. Because as my mother explained, Uncle Jerry hated to drive. So I've learned a couple of things from Uncle Jerry, and you can all take this with you. When you go to a major event, park closest to the stadium as possible. And you would think that that's a bad idea, but no, because Uncle Jerry had it down. You'd walk into the stadium, we'd be at the game. You'd order a hot dog, you'd order a drink. I'd have 5 beers. By the fourth quarter, the game was over, one way or the other, whether it was in the bag or totally done. He'd give me that look, and we'd go bolting for the door. And everybody else would be coming out. But well, they're all going down down these long aisles with their cars parked at the exit. We're right there. And we hop in my car. Sometimes it was a small car, and Jerry had to squeeze in. And while they're walking their cars, we're flooring it down. Right out the parking lot, onto the parkway. We'd be back at the house, time for dinner sometimes, the game wasn't even over yet. That's how he did it. So the other piece of advice he gave me was, after I got married for the first time 4 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever. And I got the quality, and he looked at me and said, so you've gone quality of life. He said, you've inherited a daughter, a dog, a wife. I thought he was going to give me some really great fatherly advice. Nah. He said, she's going to college. And sooner or later, she's going to get an apartment. I can only tell you one thing. Make sure there's an elevator or she lives on the ground floor. And you think this is minor advice, but let me tell you. Her sophomore year, she's at the University of Pittsburgh, and she tells me how she got this great apartment. It's cheap, and she's got roommates, and I'm paying her rent, so I'm thinking happy days. And we arrive, and this building was built sometime before Hitler came to power. And there was no elevator, and they had the top floor. And all I heard was, I called Uncle Jerry, and he laughed. And laughed. And so, yeah, even now I can still hear him laughing. So those are two pieces of advice he gave me, so I pass them on to you. If your kid goes to college, elevator. And when you go to a sporting event, park closest to the stadium.
News you can use. Anybody else?
Hello. I have to excuse my voice because I have a cold. But we're the Broaduses also. Cheryl was the youngest brother of my father, so he was my uncle. And the main thing I remember about him is his big heart, his smile and his laughter. And no matter how we felt when we ran into it, we were happy once we got there with him. I remember we used to babysit Linda and Cheryl when they were little. And it was such fun being over his house, being with the girls, and being with his personality, because he had such a big heart. He was there both for my mother's passing and my father's passing. And through it all, he would be right there and he'd say, it's going to be okay. I'm here. Thank you.
I won't take up too much of your time, but Isabel Broadus was my aunt, and she was the sister of my mother. And we all grew up together. And I used to play around with her a lot when I was a kid. And she'd come by the house, and because my grandmother was still living at that point with her mother, and she'd come by the house to see my grandmother. She'd also see me and my mother, and we'd just stay there and play. And I couldn't pass up this opportunity to give a few words about her, because I loved her and I didn't really know. She was just an aunt, that's all I knew. I was a kid then, and I didn't know any more significance than that. But we all had a nice time. She'd come by to see my grandmother, because my grandmother had both of her legs amputated. And she was sticking around for a long time, and she lived with my mother. My father died when I was 9 years old. And so we all stayed together. I just wanted to take this opportunity to say a few words to let you know that I'm going to miss her quite a bit. I called her, by the way, Aunt Ruth. Or Aunt Ruth, really. Okay, thank you.
This is Jerry's cousin Elmer, right? Yes.